Hello everyone, and welcome to our semester group project, going over Chapter 11, which is titled Employee Counseling, Well-Being, and Wellness. Our team members consist of myself, Eric Pena, Richard Rendon, Rachel Jones, and Daleth Walker. In this chapter, we will give you some insight on the history of employee wellness from the healthcare to the employment divisions. We will also be discussing some of the programs designed for staff members who may be going through some various types of illnesses. Then we will go over the roles of supervisors and the positions they play in the system of wellness within a company. Lastly, we will explain the legal and ethical issues raised by employee counseling, assistance, and health and wellness programs. Thank you, and we hope you enjoy our findings. Hello again, and in this slide, I will be starting with a little information covering our first few topics. Starting with counseling. Counseling in companies is meant to ensure that each employee is a positive contributor to an organization's effectiveness and that they contribute to their future as well as their companies. Our next touched on topic will be an employee's well-being. This is the assurance that an employee is in their proper state of mind and that their employer is doing what is needed to assist in any way possible to keep this as so. Lastly is the wellness of a company's staff members. In doing so, a company can provide resources, including health centers or even training seminars that will support the employee's physical and mental health endeavors. Now I will be discussing a little about the history of healthcare directed towards its monetary losses. Since the beginning of time, healthcare has always been on a rise. For example, as the chart displays, since 1960, healthcare expenditures have more than tripled every decade, and even to this day continue to rise enormously. Production costs are jumping every year due to the abuse involving alcohol or other controlled substances. And as you guessed it, this results in healthcare costs rising. Major corporations are also feeling the consequences from employees' loss in the proper aid and assistance needed by decrease in production, high turnover rates with employees and production, accidents both inside and outside the workplace, high absenteeism from the staff members, poor decision making by employees and upper management, and increased cost in all the production that's used and all the materials going to waste through not proper thinking of substance abuse. Next, on the next slide, I will be discussing a little bit more in depth of history regarding employee counseling. Now we will talk a little about the history of employee counseling. Employee counseling has been around since the early 1900s. Beginning this trend was Macy's by including employee counseling with their personnel in 1917. 3 short years later, the movement increased with over 100 of the largest companies in the United States embracing the wellness of their employees. In the same fashion, wellness-related activities exploded in the 1980s with an estimate of over 20,000 employee assistance programs that dealt with substance abuse and mental health problems. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the current workforce displays 40% of private industry workers enrolled in employee program assistance, 23% enrolled in wellness programs, and 13% with access to fitness centers through their employer. Some of the EAP, Employee Assistance Programs, objectives are to communicate with their employees in accordance to policies and procedures, grant emotional physical help as needed to employees, reduce stress both at work and at home, promotion of healthy habits and physical movement activities. Counseling is also offered through EAP for the emotional benefit of venting and discussing employee problems. Being a city employee, the city offers its employees many programs promoting employee wellness. One in particular is for 6 free sessions per year at a counseling center called Deer Oaks Mental Health Association. It is meant to assist an employee or family member going through hard times, issues, and might just need an ear to listen or to vent. I personally find this service very helpful. The last 2 objectives are mainly designed to show the employee that the company that they work for truly cares and is taking the time and the money to look further into ways of helping its staff become a more productive individual both inside and outside of work and become a better assistance aid to society. Now I will talk to you a little bit about the providers and the disadvantages and advantages that go along with it. Depending on which company you work for or looking at working for, many companies have 2 types of service providers, internally and externally. With this in mind, many of the programs require trained employers from specialists such as psychologists, social workers, and any certified individual. Some of the advantages attributed to in-house programs include management controlling of the programs that familiarize with the organization. Management can follow up more closely and with less hassle. The employee feels more empowered within the sessions, and a better connection with employee/employer. Now, some of the disadvantages of in-house programs include confidentiality may be leaked, the lack of proper resources or trained professionals, loss of money from employees not using the services, and possible limitations in the staff's skills and expertise. On the next slide, we'll be going over the 6 basic components of the typical employee assistance program.
Defining coaching. There is no set definition for coaching. It can be defined as a set of performance improvement techniques. Forney defines coaching as a face-to-face discussion between a manager and a subordinate to get the subordinate to stop performing undesirable behaviors and begin performing desirable ones. Coaching has been viewed as a conversation of self-discovery that follows a reasoning process and leads to superior performance, commitment to sustained growth, and positive relationships. Role of a supervisor and a manager in coaching. It is clearly stated that a supervisor or manager has a responsibility for coaching its employees. To meet and uphold organizational standards, a supervisor manager will pay close attention to performance and assert authority to ensure the effectiveness of coaching. Employee counseling programs. There are a different range of employee counseling programs, ranging from health risk, on-site counseling, stress reduction workshops, program to promote employee health. Components of a typical program: problem identification, education, referral, counseling, treatment, and follow-up. Overview of programs. Problem identification includes the use of a screening device that may also require training of employees and supervisors when identifying a problem. An example of this is a supervisor may be trained to identify the behavioral patterns that indicate possible substance abuse. Education normally requires provided information about the nature of prevalence, likely cause, and consequences of a problem. The provided information will also include a way to prevent problems. An example of this is a video or a lecture to raise employee awareness of the problem and learn how to address it.
Employee Assistance Programs. What is the main focus of each EAPs? How effective are they? What are some of the most common EAPs? Some examples of common EAPs include substance abuse counseling, mental health wellness and counseling, stress management and counseling. A substance abuse program is a set of activities and materials created by an organization with the goal of maintaining a healthy work environment free of illicit substance and employee drug misuse. Its purpose is to safeguard the employees' health, safety, and well-being. These programs encourage employees to live a drug-free and substance-free lifestyle. It is also acknowledges appropriate drug-addicted employee interventions and explains the recommended procedures for aiding an employee before they become unstable for duty. Substance abuse. Substance abuse has a powerful impact on society and businesses around the world. It is estimated that $7,000 annually per year is spent on each employee for substance abuse cases. The increased risk for accidents, injuries, and disciplinary problems and high turnover rates continue to increase over the years due to substance abuse. The Drug-Free Workplace Act of 1988 was enacted to promote drug-free awareness programs among federal contractors and grant receivers. This includes informing employees about the availability of drug counseling, rehabilitation, and employee assistance programs. Substance abuse is a dangerous relapsing brain disease requiring intensive treatment in a professional setting. Someone who is suffering from substance abuse will have cravings and compulsive drug use to persist even in the face of negative consequences. This is where EAPs and substance abuse counseling come into place to help alleviate some of these thoughts and prevent employees from relapsing into drug abuse. Substance abuse counseling. Substance abuse has a significant influence on both society and businesses across the globe. Alcohol has been related to 47% of the workplace injuries. Counseling is offered within substance abuse programs. Substance abuse counseling refers to a type of intervention to help individuals recover from abuse of alcohol or other drugs by abstaining completely from substance or cutting down on its use. With regards to alcohol abuse, which is the most common form of substance abuse, the most widely used form of counseling is called brief alcohol intervention or BAI. The purpose of substance abuse counseling is to improve or maintain health by changing behaviors that are causing present or potential harm to the substance user and others. Alcohol and substance abuse can trigger a number of health-related problems as well. Mental health. Mental health includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It affects how we think, feel, and act. It also helps determine how we handle stress, relate to others, and make healthy choices. Mental health is important at every stage of life, from childhood and adolescence through adulthood. It was estimated that 43.7 million adults in the United States experienced some form of depression and illness in 2012. Mental illness affects major life activities including eating, managing money, and functioning in social, family, work, and educational settings. Employees' personal mental health issue may be transferred into the workplace, and employment itself can lead to a loss in mental health. Mental illness is a common health condition in the United States, with more than 50% of the Americans being diagnosed with a mental illness or disorder at some point in their lifetime. 1 in 5 Americans will experience a mental illness in a given year. Mental health counseling focuses on the individual to help realize his or her own abilities that can cope with the normal stresses of life and can work productively and fruitfully and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. Stress management. Effective stress management allows you to break free from the grip of your stress in your life, allowing you to be happier, healthier, and more productive. A balanced lifestyle is the ultimate objective. There are different types of stress management interventions. From individual to organizational, the outcomes may differ. Individual interventions include mediation, exercise, relaxation techniques, goal setting, and time management, while organizational interventions include organizational structure, job design, selection and placement programs, working conditions, and training development. The outcomes for individuals include better blood pressure, heart rate, quality of life, lower anxiety and depression, and psychosomatic complaints. The organizational outcomes include productivity, quantity, and quality, turnover rates lower, absenteeism lower, healthcare costs, and accidents down. There are many ways to manage stress, as stress is part of being human and it can help motivate you to get things done. High stress from serious illness and job loss, death in a family, or a painful life event can be a natural part of life.
Program overview. Referral involves directing the employee to an appropriate resource or assistance. An example of this is an employee that shows signs of addiction can be referred to a drug testing facility. Counseling consists of a person that an employee can have a discussion with and seek further help if needed. There is a variety of different types of counseling. An example of this is a frank discussion with a supervisor related to work that can be based on performance problems, or a discussion with a mental health professional who is trained in how to treat depression or substance abuse. Overview of offered programs. Treatment/intervention is the actual intervention to solve the problem possibly discussed in counseling or with your supervisor. An example of this is resources to seek help to better yourself. This can also be your health, ensuring you are eating healthy with a complete plan. Follow-up comes in the form of monitoring to ensure the employee is completing the treatment. This is also a way to obtain information from the employee. An example of this is a frequent visit to check in on the employee. Who provides the service? An organization may offer counseling programs in-house or contracted out. In-house or on-site programs include using current employees or hiring specialists like a psychologist, social workers, and other trained individuals.
Legal and ethical issues of EPAs. Federal law supporting employees, reasonable accommodations, negative outcomes, and overall effectiveness of health and well-being programs. Federal laws supporting employees. There are several federal laws in place to support employees in the workplace. Some of the federal laws that were listed in the text include the Federal Rehabilitation Act of 1973, the Drug Free Workplace Act of 1988, Executive Order 12564, also known as the Drug Free Federal Workplace Act. The Federal Rehabilitation Act of 1973 prohibits discrimination on the basis of disability in programs conducted by federal agencies, in programs receiving federal financial assistance, in federal employment, and in the employment practices of federal contractors. In Section 503, prohibits discrimination on the basis of a disability in programs conducted by federal agencies, in programs receiving federal financial assistance, in federal employment, and in the employment practices of federal contractors. The Drug Free Rehabilitation Act of 1988 is a U.S. federal legislation act that tries to reduce drug use within organizations that have contracts with federal government. The Workplace Act directly affects federal contractors as well as organizations that receive grants from the federal government. The act requires organizations and companies to agree to run a drug-free workplace before entering a contract or grant programs with the U.S. government. An Executive Order 12564, also known as the Federal Drug-Free Workplace Program, was initiated in 1986, and this establishes the goal of a drug-free federal workplace and made it a condition of employment for all federal employees to refrain from using illegal drugs on or off duty. The Rehabilitation Act of 1973 and the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990 prohibit discrimination against individuals with disabilities. The ADA defines a disability as an individual who has successfully completed or are currently using a supervised drug rehabilitation program and who are no longer using illegal drugs. It is unlawful to simply permit the employee's performance to deteriorate to a level that would justify termination. An alcoholic employee may not be fired because of his or her alcoholism, and accommodations must include modification of facilities, materials, procedures, jobs, and employees must act. Reasonable accommodations is also interpreted to mean the employee must be offered the opportunity for treatment and permitted the time necessary for treatment to take effect before firing for poor performance. Negative outcomes from EAP programs, and those would include scheduling programs, increased fatigue, accidents, potential low work performance, and potential work conflicts. To the employer, higher workman's comp cost increase, additional resources designated to health programs, scheduling conflicts to accommodate health and educational programs, and potential unimproved work performance. Although there are possible negative impacts to EAPs, research has suggested that 72% of executives surveyed say keeping employees healthy is crucial to business success, and that it is important that they make an effort to keep employees safe and well. Promote employee health would be to make the workplace smoke-free and help employees kick the habit outside of work. Encourage exercise by offering employees free use of a fitness center or subsidizing employees' memberships to official sites. On health, offer on-site health education and screening for conditions like high blood pressure and cholesterol. Design healthcare programs with a component that extends to employees' families. Provide nutritious options in cafeterias and vending machines, and if possible, subsidize the purchase for them. Also, we could share it with employees who take care of themselves some of the savings that they themselves could generate.